Well, good morning and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Okay, today let's look at the tariff hike in the telecoms sector. Well, the telecommunications companies had asked for a 100% tariff increase. In the event, the NCC has just approved that, yeah, there will be an increase, but it shall be 50%. Not 100%. And even that 50%, there are all sorts of conditionalities attached to it. That there must be a significant improvement in the quality of services and, you know, that kind of a thing. Okay, that's not the one side, but as perhaps to be expected, NLC, TUC, you know, even the CNG, as I'm looking at one paper in front of me here, have rejected the 50% telecom tariff hike and have said that among other things, it's insensitive. It comes in the midst of Nigerians still trying to grapple with other price increases. So here we are. So let's talk about that today. And our guest is the Director of Corporate Affairs, Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, that is FCCP, Mr. Ondaje Ijagu. Good morning to you, Mr. Ijagu.
Good morning and thanks for having me.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. Well, let's look at this increase in the...
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you very much. I heard your response just now. Can you hear me still? We're just double checking it. Can you hear me still? Can you hear me, Mr. Jagu? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. Okay. I think there might be a little matter of delay in the transmission of sound.
Yes, but I can hear you.
Okay, good, good. First of all, let me get your reaction on the 50% increase, which has been outrightly condemned by NLC and TUC, especially from the point of view of the Federal Competition and Consumer Protective Commission. What is your reaction to, one, the increase, and then two, the rejection by labor groups?
Yes, our reaction is that of a regulator. We look at all of this from all fronts. We look at it from the supply side as well as the consumer side.
Okay, I heard that. I heard what you just said, but were you going to continue? I just heard you say that you look at it from two sides.
Because there's a howl back. I can't really get the sound from this.
Are you listening? I hope you're not trying to listen to the program off a television set, because that won't work.
I'm unable to hear you from my device, but at the moment I think I can speak. And like I was saying, yes, from the point of view of the regulator,
yeah,
we'll look at the issues from both the supply and demand side. Supply side, because the services would have to be there. And demand side, because we would want fairness to the consumer. We would also want that the consumer has value for money. So we look at both sides, and looking at both sides in this case, we're able to tell that it's like the chicken and egg situation. A situation where you will begin to ask yourself, should it be tariff increase first or improvement in quality of service before tariff increase? And having weighed the options, having looked at the situation carefully, we agree with our sister agency in this case. That's the Nigerian Communications Commission. we agree with our sister agency that for there to be sustainability in this business and for service to be provided on a steady basis, there would need to be this tariff increase. But not just tariff increase for the sake of it. Tariff increase tied to service improvement. So that is where we stand. And that is the undertaking we have gotten even from our sister agency as well as the operators in this regard.
Okay, well, I mean, how are we going to be able to measure improvements in services? Are such devices available?
Sorry, I didn't get you.
I said, you know, since you said this is conditional upon the telcos themselves improving the quality of their services, I was wondering how we're going to be able to measure that. How will we be able to measure that indeed the quality of, they have improved the quality of service?
Okay, good. You know, they have a primary regulator, which is the Nigerian Communications Commission.
Yeah.
And that primary regulator has all the technical wherewithal to measure quality of service. They have parameters for measurement of quality of service. They have parameters for even improvement in quality of service. So who will be leveraging on the expertise of our sister agency in that regard? And you know, we recently also signed an MOU with the Nigerian Communications Commission. The MOU is all encompassing. We'll share information, would carry out a joint implementation of tasks, as well as also joint evaluation, particularly in this case, of whether there had been improvement in quality of service or not. So we'll be doing that together.
Okay.
We have a joint working group that is responsible for that.
Okay.
And definitely it's what we'll be looking at. But we'll, like I said, we'll leverage on their expertise while we provide the consumer perspective to all of these issues.
Now, it is that consumer perspective that I think NLC, TUC, you know, they have grabbed hold of with both hands, saying that how could we come up with this kind of an increase? These are very, very difficult times for the Nigerian worker and commuter. Sorry, you didn't? Go ahead.
I didn't get your question very well, but
okay, I was saying that
about consumer perspective.
Yes,
we'll be looking at issues that had bothered consumers in the area of telecom services, issues that had come up in the several complaints we had received in the past and continue to receive.
Okay.
Issues like depletion of data, internet data unduly. Issues like paying for a service and having a transaction halfway, and maybe due to poor customer service, consumers are not able to get value for their money. Issues like you complain to a telecom company about a particular issue you're having and is not attended to. Then issues of generally poor service delivery. So these are the consumer perspectives we'll be bringing to bear when we intervene in that kind of situation. And that's exactly what we'll be doing. Okay. We'll look at things first from the perspective of the consumer. The NCC definitely will be looking at things. We also look at both sides anyway. But what concerns us in this respect is whether there is a level playing field for everyone to operate. And one of the things that NCC did that we are happy about with respect to this tariff is the fact that they capped it. They had a maximum cap. That presupposes that if they say, look, you cannot exceed 50% tariff increase, it means you can do 40%. Another operator can do 30%. And then a third operator could say, okay, look, I increased mine by 20%. And that's the kind of thing we would be expecting to see, because we want a situation where people can explore those kind of windows to be able to get more customers to their fold.
Yeah.
So we want that kind of stiff competition. So what they have done is not to say, look, you must increase yours by 50%. They have only said you cannot exceed 50%. So you could do 35, I could do 40.
They wanted they wanted 100%. Remember that they wanted 100%. They applied for 100%, but in the response now it was no more than 50%. Of course, that's why we're now thinking about, look, some might even say 40, some maybe even 30. But they started out wanting 100% tariff increase, citing, among other things, the value of the naira and all those kind of things that the business climate had.
100% increase, yes, more than 100% from what we actually gathered. Some operators asked for more than 100%. And definitely, we know that as people who are involved in negotiations in one form or the other from time to time, you know that people sometimes put their best foot forward and then they look for how these things will translate. And we believe that even some of the operators that had asked for more than 100% would have known that definitely the regulator would look at things differently. And that is just what has happened. But we expect that there will be competition because, like it or not, there's still competition in that sector. Every day and every hour, you see that the telecom operators are actually bidding for more uptake by consumers through their advertisements and a whole lot of things, even promotions, sales promotions, and all of that. So you would also recognize that there is keen competition in the sector. And because there is keen competition in the sector, everybody, we expect that people will be doing the best they can. So people might, some operators might actually reduce even the percentage increase to be able to bring on board more customers.
One certainly hopes so, but I think NLC has sort of has told us that before NLC even came along with that, we knew the average Nigerian consumer is in very stringent times. Now, when it comes to percentages of the money available, I think it was Joe Ajero, NLC president, who was using the recently approved 70,000 naira, and he's worked out that look, this is something like 20%. If this hike goes ahead, that has been approved, it's something like 20%. And now that it is, you're saying that we should go to, 20, we should go to double, well, almost double. We should go to no more than 50%. This is going to now cost the ordinary telephone subscriber something in the region of 30% of his take home. Now, whatever the correct percentages are, the point that seemed to be made by Joe Ajero was that the Nigerian is just barely managing, and immediately we are coming along. So I wanted to ask you, sir, as the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, did you not see that the people at the lower end of the scale, this is going to be quite a significant increase? It seems to me that you've done your own sums as well and have arrived at the conclusion that it might not be palatable, but the Nigerian consumer can afford it. Is that how you have decided?
Let me say that it's not that we will just conjure figures with respect to percentage and say, okay, maybe it's 20, it's 30. He who wears the shoe knows where it pinches. And the operators are the ones who wear these shoes, and they know exactly where it pinches them. And definitely, their regulator, their primary regulator, which is the NCC, I'm sure harvested all that they needed to harvest with respect to information, with respect to data, with respect to cost of operation and all of that before they arrived at what they did. One thing that we are careful about, when you do the job of a regulator, I think I need to state this. When we do the job of a regulator, we measure risk a lot. I think measurement of risk is even one thing that we need to be doing from time to time, because the lack of it is what has plunged this country into the abyss where we had been. And when we talk about risk measurement in this respect, you would have to weigh your options. If a man says, okay, look, the service I'm rendering to you, I can no longer render because of cost of operations. And he's been able to table or put the data bare on the table for you to see that this is what exactly it costs me to render this service to you. And you insist that you must continue to render. And even they gave their caveat to, because they had said that, look, if we continue like this, there might come a time when we begin to do load shedding like it's done in the electricity sector, where a zone in the country will have a service for a particular time and then they shut down the others. That is not the kind of thing we want to happen to consumers in this country. Because you'll be able to also tell that if you are at maybe at point A and you have service and your ally who is at point B does not have service, definitely there would be no communication. So we try as much as possible to avert that kind of situation where we begin to ration telecom service in Nigeria or do load shedding, like I said. We try as much as possible to avoid those kind of things. So when you see us look at these things in a different manner than maybe an activist would look at it, it is because we have data. We are also availed of all the necessary information, and we try to look at things objectively from both sides. And like I said, we look at things from both the demand and supply sides. We don't just situate ourselves in one location and say, okay, look, we would just look at the interest of the consumer. If you deny the consumer service, if you deny him choice, definitely you will not be serving his interest at the end of the day. So what we are looking at and what we are doing is to ensure that service is not disrupted, service continues to be reliable, and then there's sustainable improvement in the sector. So that's the kind of thing we're looking at, and definitely that is what we want to have. And that is why we must hold operators to account. We must ensure that whatever they have committed to in terms of service improvement, we are able to achieve it within the shortest possible time.
We certainly do hope so, because as you said, I'm happy you said that you look at it from both sides, from the seller side, so to speak, and the consumer side. And clearly you have worked out the sums, and it has been determined that the Nigerian consumer, he can come through this, he will come through this. But I think what you've said is that these are not conclusions that are lightly arrived at, that you studied it, and so that what you've just finished saying should not happen, where there is sort of a telephony shedding, as we have experienced elsewhere, so that doesn't come about. Well, we take it, but I was going to ask, the struggle that Nigerians are having with other aspects, and I'm sure you'd have looked at that. This whole matter about just trying to make ends meet. Everything has become expensive. That's why the NLC said that it's a most inopportune time. But I suppose that doesn't really, affect what you've just said. That is that it is a reasoned, agreement with them that, look, you won't get 100, and you've just explained that some even wanted more than 100. Some even wanted more than 100%. But you've capped it at...
I can hardly hear you, but I want to hazard a guess that what you are asking is possibly maybe how it affects the purchasing power of the consumer.
Which is already battered. Yes, take it from that angle, which is already battered and bruised. Did you hear that?
Okay. Definitely. You know how we look at these issues. Like I said, we look at them as a regulator would look at an issue. We want the service to be there first, and then we want to be able to ensure that everybody's interest is catered to. In this case, that of the operator as well as the consumer. We don't want a situation where we go, because we have seen where services had collapsed in the past. We see a sister sector in this respect, you and I know, where services have all over the years collapsed to an extent that you are not able, even when you pay for service, you are not able to get that service at the end of the day. And we don't want that kind of situation to happen in the telecom sector. The telecom sector is one every Nigerian should guard jealously. The reason is that without it, even what we're doing now, we cannot do. We use it for almost every aspect of our livelihood today. You see a situation where we need to do transactions with our bank, we leverage on their services. We need to even make certain purchases, we'll do so. We need to do some research, we'll go online, we'll use their services, and like we're also communicating. So it's not just, maybe we can't limit this to communication. We limit it, if we do that, it's our own peril. The telecom sector is quite vital to the economy of Nigeria. Almost everything would have to collapse if we allow the sector to collapse. Okay. And that is why we're very careful and we're mindful of how we're looking at this. So from our own perspective, it is better for a consumer to pay a little more and then get commensurate service for that payment than for us to be left to our devices. Like, we generate power by ourselves sometimes in our various homes, even in our various offices. We are forced to generate power by ourselves. We do not have the means maybe to begin to install towers and then get telecom services powered up for us to leverage at individual level. So when we have this commonwealth and a situation where everybody can tap into it, both the locator and the high and mighty in society, and almost enjoy equal service, I think that's the kind of thing we're looking at. So we know that, yes, it's a pain in the neck of the consumer, but our own commitment from our part is to ensure that we hold the operators to account. We hold them to account with respect to the promises they have made concerning service improvement. We also ensure that consumers get value for their money when they pay for these services. And that justice would continue, at least economic justice for the Nigerian consumer in that respect. Okay. So these are the things we're looking at. So when we weigh the options, yes, and then we look at the opportunity costs, we think and tend to think that it is better for us to pay a little more and have better services and have sustainable operations rather than for this system to collapse. All right. That's why we told the line we're towing.
Let us at this stage, play back the report that was made when all of this hit the public space a few days ago, that there was going to be a 50% maximum increase in the price of tariffs in the telecom sector.
Nigerians are yet to come to terms with the recent approval by the Nigerian Communications Commission for a 50% increase in tariff on calls and data. Less than 24 hours after this announcement, the federal government also endorses this decision, stating that the adjustment aligns with broader economic trends. Nigeria's Communication and Innovation Minister, who is at the National Assembly to defend his ministry's budget, is also defending this decision despite the outcry from many Nigerians. He says the decision aligns with broader economic patterns where tariffs can lead to higher consumer prices due to the added cost on imported goods.
Part of the development, I think the hike is also based on inflation globally. This is a sector that has not increased price for a long time. In fact, what government has been doing is managing the situation. The companies have been crying out for a long time that they're struggling. The cost of diesel, you can imagine how much they bought diesel last year and how much it's going for this year. And this is not a problem that is unique to Nigeria. But what we've done with them is saying that telecommunication services are now extremely important to our people. So it's not something you can just increase price haphazardly.
The minister also explains that the federal government of Nigeria plans to invest 6 billion naira to deploy 90,000 kilometers of fiber optic cable, expanding the country's capacity from 35,000 kilometers to 125,000 kilometers.
We have to make sure that the sector continues to stay sustainable. but at the same time, we don't want to inflict pain on Nigerians. So they were claiming for 100% increase in tariff. I think, as you can see from what NCC released yesterday, we had a lot of back and forth. They've been talking about since even before we were appointed. The first time I met them almost 16, 17 months ago, it was the same thing they were talking about. But now I think we've settled at about 50% to ensure that they can find ways to stay sustainable, but also the price hike is not significant to the point where it becomes painful for our people.
He appeals to Nigerians with an assurance that the decision is necessary to foster growth in the critical communications sector. TVC News, Abuja.
Okay, so there you have it. These are the considerations, such as we are also hearing from Mr. Ijagu, who has been explaining that